everyone, my name is Ellie, and today we are going to be talking about using sewing patterns for cosplay. If you've watched my videos before, you might notice that it's very rare that I will use a store-bought pattern. More often than not, I will be draping a pattern or drafting a pattern. Personally, I have a lot of issues with store-bought patterns. They don't always fit me right, and it can be quicker and cheaper for me to drape my own pattern. But today we are going to be altering one to make it fit a costume perfectly. So let's go ahead and get started. The pattern we're going to be looking at today is New Look number 6035. I purchased this from Joann's and it was approximately $4 or $5. Let's see if we can get it to focus. This pattern is great because it comes with a pair of pants that have darts along the backside. It also comes with a matching skirt, a jersey top, and this beautiful princess seam jacket. I'm going to be altering this pattern to fit punk rock Hanamaru from Love Live Sunshine. So it was really important to me that I had the right fitting seams, such as the princess seams in the jacket and those darts in the pants. So in order to make this fit Hanamaru, I'm definitely going to need to shorten these pants. I need shorts, not pants. And then I'm also going to be altering the jacket. I'm going to make it so instead of one button, it actually will fold all the way over with a couple snaps, and I'll be shortening up those sleeves and changing the neckline a little bit. But in general, this pattern should get us pretty darn close. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is reading my instructions. I know, this is like a science project, okay? Flashback to middle school when you're in chemistry and you're surrounded by like the little drippy droppy things and one wrong move and everything can blow up. That's what we've got going on here. So you want to make sure that you read all of your instructions and highlight if there is anything confusing, out of the normal, or that you don't know how to do. That way you can research it, and when you get to that step, you'll feel a lot more comfortable knowing that there is something weird going on. Once you've read your instructions, go ahead and cut out your pattern. I hate cutting out patterns. The tissue paper they are on tears really easily, but it is great for seeing the pattern on your fabric through your paper pattern, so it is important. But go ahead and cut out all of your pieces. I cut out every single piece of a pattern, even if I'm not going to be using it. This way, when I come back to the pattern in months or years even, I have all the pieces cut out and I don't have to worry about taking the time to cut them out later. I'm not gonna lie, cutting out a pattern takes a long time. It took me at least 30 or 40 minutes to cut out all these pieces. But once they're done, you are ready to move on, and we're going to start on our mock-up. I always suggest making a mock-up, no matter what, but I especially suggest making a mock-up if you're using a store-bought pattern. This way you can make sure it fits you perfectly before you cut into your really expensive fashion fabrics. So I am just using this very basic cotton, and I'm going to be cutting out all of the pieces that I need. Since there are a few pieces I know I'm going to make alterations to, I'm going to do those now, like shortening the pants, so that way I don't have to cut out an entire pant, only to chop it off at mid-thigh. I'm also going to shorten the waist of the jacket and the length of the sleeve. The other alteration I'm going to make as I'm cutting out my mock-up is I'm going to be extending the front piece and the neckline. This way I have enough room to mess around and get the neckline and the fold over exactly the way I want it to be. So with everything cut out, it's time to move on to sewing our mock-up together. In order to sew our mock-up together, I'm going to be using the basting setting on my machine. A basting stitch is a very long stitch, usually with a length setting between 4 and 5, that can be easily taken out of your fabric. This way, if you make a mistake or when you need to take out your stitches later to see how it matches up to your current pattern, you're able to very easily just take those stitches out. It's one of my favorite things ever when I'm taking apart my mock-up and I can just go and rip it apart. And it doesn't rip my fabric, it just takes out the stitches. It's very satisfying and will make your life a lot easier if you're doing a lot of mock-ups. So I'm going to follow each and every one of my steps very carefully. I'm leaving out a few things like all the belt loops. I only need to put in 1 or 2 to see how they look. I'm also leaving out the facing since that won't really affect the fit of this costume. Once everything is together, let's go ahead and try it on. I'm starting with the shorts. As we can see, they are long and they don't really fit right. This is a punk rock costume. These are supposed to look like leather hot pants, basically. So I am going to take in the side seams by about 1 or 2 inches, and I'm also going to shorten them quite a bit. I've also noticed that the waistband is sitting a little bit too high. I prefer it to be a bit more on my hips. So I'm also going to pin that down so I can see where I want it to be. At this point, I can go ahead and make these alterations. Using my basting stitch, I take in the side seam. I'm also going to chop off that length, and then I'm going to take off my waistband, move it down a few inches, and put it back on. All right, so here we are in our shorts again. These look a lot better, like a million times better. They actually fit us properly, and they look like punk rock shorts. So now that I'm happy with our pants, I am going to move on to the jacket. Again, following my instructions to sew it all together with our basting stitch. And once I got most of the jacket put together, I noticed it was huge, like obviously too big. But that's because this is a fashion jacket. It's not supposed to be super tight. This is supposed to be worn over multiple layers. So I'm gonna have to adjust that. Before I attached my sleeves, I went ahead and threw the mock-up onto my dress form and took in the side seam by about 2 inches. You could also do this on your body. I spent many years sewing with mock-ups on my body, pinning in a mirror. It's awkward, but it works. So feel free to do that if you don't have a dress form. With my side seam fixed, I'm gonna go ahead and attach my sleeve. This sleeve pattern calls for ease at the top, which makes it so your sleeve will easily fit into the arm side and will give you room to move around. It won't be too tight. Since I made those adjustments, the ease is a little bit too much. I also sewed it in pretty shoddily, so I'm just gonna worry about that a little bit later since I do want there still to be ease in that sleeve, and I think it looks okay the way it is. So with my jacket tried on, we can tell that one side is a lot bigger where I didn't adjust the side seam. The other side fits pretty darn well. We can also see that as I use the fold over, it looks awesome. And where I have the original pattern marked is actually where I want the new pattern to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim off that excess material. At this point, we can really see that this jacket is starting to come together. Here it is on my dress form again, and we notice that it actually looks a lot like Hanamaru's. I'm gonna shorten up the sleeve a little bit more, and I'm gonna mess around with that neckline just to get it perfect, and then I'm done. So at this point, we have both of our mock-ups finished. I'm gonna try them on and see how they look together. And thankfully, it looks pretty darn good. It looks exactly like I want Hanamaru's outfit to look, with these short, tight shorts and this nice jacket that ends at the waist and has these cute short sleeves. So now that I'm happy with my pattern, it is time to move on. We are going to take it apart. I know that sounds a little silly after you just put it together, but in order to transfer this to our paper pattern, we have to take it apart. So with a clean sheet of paper, I'm gonna go ahead and trace my pattern pieces onto the paper one by one, making sure to mark the grain line, what the project is for, what piece it is, and if it has seam allowance or not. This is how I mark all of my patterns, and it's really useful. It means that I can come back later and know exactly what this pattern was for and how it was constructed. With our final pattern pieces ready, let's go ahead and compare them to the original. Starting with the pants, we can see that the pattern was originally a lot longer, and we shortened it up quite a bit. We also took in the side seams a little bit and lowered the waistline. However, the waistband and the belt loops are going to be exactly the same as the pattern, so I didn't have to remake those pieces. Looking at the jacket pieces, we can see that I mostly just shortened it up and took it in at the side seam. Otherwise, it looks pretty identical. Of course, we also did change the neckline in the front, and that's just a stylistic thing, not much of a difference on the actual pattern. For the jacket, I'm going to be using the sleeve and the collar pattern from the original, so I didn't have to worry about modifying those at all. And now with our pattern transferred to clean paper, we are ready to actually start sewing. So altering a pattern isn't that bad, and it gives you a really great jumping off point, especially if you're new to sewing and have never worked with patterns or 3D objects before. It can be really hard when you're making a jacket for the first time and you have to figure out princess seams and sleeves and collars. That can be really challenging. So it's great to have a pattern to start with that you can then modify to fit your needs. While I love draping my own patterns, I think I might start using store-bought patterns a bit more frequently. They make it really simple and they save a lot of time. Let me know if you use store-bought patterns or if you prefer to make your own. I would love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. As always, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. That really does mean the world to me and it helps support the channel. Of course, if you liked this, you can also subscribe. I post a video every Monday and Thursday, so be sure to keep your eyes open for them. Alright guys, I want to thank you again for tuning in, and as always, keep sewing, stay positive, and have fun. I will see you all next time. Bye!